All right, welcome back. Before we begin, our sponsors at Chase Bank, thank you, Chaim Yankel, requested that we should make like an intro to the video. I'll do a little intro. You ready? Mashiach now. All right, that was that. Today this video is some good old chasidic philosophy. This is from the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, the writings and teachings from the year, published in the year of, succulent year, may I say, of 1796. So going a bit back, obviously based off way back, but like everything in Judaism. One of the special things about the Alter Rebbe's way of teaching was that he held very simply, if the whole point of religion and Judaism and spirituality is to have a actual, real relationship with God, then it's not just enough to believe in God and all that, but you actually need to know God as much as is humanly, succulently possible. So this topic, which we're going to be speaking about, the way he writes it and in general is that he says, if spirituality is to become who you are, then it can't stop at belief. It needs to become into your knowledge and into who you really are, into your kishkes. So the way he writes this topic isn't just with the facts on the ground, the final outcome. It's with the proofs and the logic and all the different things involving that, which is a beautiful thing. So let's get right into it. This idea starts off with the saying of King David, which he said in the book of Psalms, La'ilam Hashem Dvarcha Nisav Hashemayim, forever, O Hashem, your words are standing in the heavens. And as the Baal Shem Tov explained this idea, what he's saying is that God started creating the world by the 6 days of creation, when the world came into being, but he never stopped. The creation is continuous, meaning every single second, God continues to create this world. And this is what David was saying in the book of Tehillim, that your words are constantly standing in heaven, is that every single second, God is re-energizing and recreating, really, the world. And that, for example, Hashem said the words, Yehi Ar, there should be light, to create light. That saying that God said is what gives energy constantly to the light. Meaning, the point over here that we're starting off at is that God never stopped creating the world. It isn't like God created the world and then boom, he went somewhere else. The world is self-existent. The world could exist by itself. There's a constant creation, and God needs to recreate the world every single second, which this is the basis of many chasidic, very important chasidic ideas. For example, hashgacha pratis, which is the idea that every single thing that happens in our world is divine providence and happens for a reason, specifically because of this idea that God didn't create the world and now it's running by itself. God created the world and recreates the world every single second. Okay, now the Alter Rebbe gets involved, and he's coming here to say a simple point. This idea and this teaching of King David and of the Baal Shem Tov, that the world recreates itself, that God, recreates the world every single second, this isn't just like a nice spiritual idea. This is a must. This is something that we are forced to say. We cannot say that God made the world and the world is now self-sustainable, existing by itself. God goes to his place. The world remains on its own. It is impossible to say that. There's a few examples to explain this idea. Starting off with what the world is not, what the nature of the world is not. It's not us creating things. Something from something. It's not something from something. Meaning, for example, when we want to create a table, you would take some wood, which already existed, you would form it into a table, and then you could walk away after you finish forming that wood into a table. You could walk away, and that table will exist, self-sustain itself, and exist and be good forever. You don't need to continue creating that table. But we do find in nature that there's certain things that will not continue to exist in a certain state unless they have a constant force. The most simple example for this is when you're going to throw a rock off the floor. The nature of the rock is obviously to be on the ground. If you're going to throw it, it will fly in the air for as long as your pressure is in the rock, for as long as your strength is keeping that rock in the air. The second that your strength stops fighting nature, meaning because over here you're fighting nature, you're fighting the nature that the rock belongs and is naturally on the ground. You're fighting that by throwing it. So the only way you'll be able to continue fighting that nature is as long as you have a continuous strength and power in the rock. The second that your throw, the energy of your throw fades away, the rock returns to its original nature. Now, and this is only speaking about things where you're not even changing the essential nature of the creation. You're just changing the effect of what it's doing. Instead of a rock being on the floor, it's going to now fly in the air. Even for that, you would need a constant force. When it comes to the creation of the world, literally, which isn't something from something, we're taking something from nothing. There could be no greater breaking of nature. You're taking something that has no reason to exist, no previous existence, and you're now saying you exist, not because you deserve to exist, not because it's true, like 2 + 2 is true, so it exists. You're saying you exist because I made you exist. There's no reason in nature for you to exist. Your nature is not to exist. And this is the crux of the idea. If God were to stop recreating the world every single second, the world would completely cease to exist. God wouldn't do an action. It's not like he would say he would now destroy the world and now the world would cease to exist. It's if he would stop recreating it, the world would simply revert to its nature of non-existence. The whole idea of the world existing is fighting the nature of, first of all, the whole idea of existing for no purpose, existing for no reason. Why should you exist? What prerequisite you have to exist? Where are you coming from? You're not coming from anything. What is your existence based off? Do you have any real self-existence? Do you have any real identity? There is no real identity. So why are you existing? So to fight that nature, God recreates the world every single second. But if you would stop recreating the world every single second, the world would simply cease to exist. This idea is based off some of the most basic and fundamental ideas in Judaism. Starting off with the idea, like we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. When we say that Hashem is one, we're not just saying that he's the only God. That's the basic idea, that he's the only God. What we're saying is that he is one, period. He is the only existence in the world. How do you explain that? Because when you look at the world, take a chair, take a table that exists. What is the existence of this table? It doesn't have its own existence. It doesn't have a self-reason to exist. The whole existence of this table is godly energy, the fact that God is making it exist this second. Meaning, if God would stop to make it exist this second, it would cease to exist. So therefore, it's not that God would destroy it and it would cease to exist. It's that if God would stop creating it every second, it would cease to exist. Meaning, it doesn't have a real existence. There is no separate existence in this world except for God, creating it every second. This is really one of the foundations of Judaism, that God is one in every aspect of life. And obviously, we can't take ourselves out of the equation. God is one, and God is in every single aspect of life. And this is what we say, Einaid Movade. There is nothing aside from God, even though there is a world and a physicality, because the physical is so nullified and so non-existent. It's a fake. It doesn't actually exist. What is its existence? It doesn't have a reason to exist. There is no existence. It's such a fraud that it can't even be considered other. It's so nullified. It's not like God would even need to destroy it for it to stop to exist. It's that it doesn't exist, period. So the point is that God is one. That's the point. The point is that God is actually one, not just one God, not just one Lord above us, but in our day-to-day life, in our whole existence, when you look at the world, you're looking at an extension of God. You're looking at godliness. You're looking at the garments of God. Like we say about hugging a king. When you hug a king, he could be wearing 50 robes. You're still hugging the king. So when we're involved in the world and we experience the world, that's like the garments of God. That's an extension of God. And when we realize the godliness that's in them, that's like hugging the king. And he could be wearing a million robes, but hugging the king is hugging the king. And we want Mashiach now.